Okay. It is 12 a.m., November 6th. Election results looks like it's pretty much settled and that Trump has somehow won again. And I find myself in this weird, serene, peaceful place. Not because I was rooting or hoping for Trump to win, not because I'm excited for anything he's about to do. I'm, in fact, very distraught and worried about the consequences of what this means for our nation and our lives and the world as a whole as we continue in the future with issues of our democracy and climate change and equity and justice for people and all of those on the line. But I find myself in this weird position of radical acceptance. And I wanted to talk not about politics, not about what will happen or what the different political parties should or shouldn't have done. I don't think that's a helpful discussion right now. I've actually been messaging a couple friends the last couple of hours and giving advice that I myself should really personally take. The advice that, hey, don't doom scroll, don't overthink things, just take care of yourself right now. But I'm an overthinker, so here I am to give my kind of unfiltered thoughts. There's no script to this. I'm not going to do too many multiple takes. I may do a couple of cuts here and there where I ramble a little too much, but I just kind of wanted to explain where I'm at, I guess, and how my different internal beliefs and thoughts have given me at least some sense of peace. So some of you might have somehow found me through the YouTube algorithm, but I'm going to guess that most of you watching this are actual friends or acquaintances through YouTube, through Instagram, through whatever. So some of you might have known me at different stages of my life, but for those of you who don't know, I grew up as an evangelical Christian, non-denominational Christian, but very much of the evangelical style. Grew up in a Chinese church in San Francisco Bay Area, in the suburbs. So, nothing like blatantly political, but very much in the specific culture and philosophy. And as I kind of went through undergrad and law school, I drifted in and out of the church. I was a philosophy major, so I learned a lot of different philosophies and ways of thinking, and made me really question a lot of my pre-held beliefs and convictions. And it's not like I have a very detailed or structured point by point bullet list of what I believe in and what I am, religion and philosophy wise. But if you had to place me on a spectrum, if you had to place me somewhere, it would probably be right on the line between agnosticism and Christian universalism, which is a whole nother rabbit hole, but also with some philosophical leanings, which I don't think is too contradictory to either of the two things I mentioned before, but with some philosophical leanings towards Stoicism from ancient kind of Greek Roman philosophy and Taoism from Eastern philosophy and religion. And one of the things that I think is giving me comfort that has come from almost every religion or philosophy that has formed a core part of my being, a core part of my upbringing, is this idea of radical acceptance. And I'll work backwards from what I've most recently been looking into studying and work forward. And I guess for a lot of people from my childhood, possibly for my parents, possibly for like um, fellow people, friends who grew up in the church with me, and for aunts and uncles and pastors in the church, from the church I attended when I was young, this might be the first time I'm hearing that I'm actually on that spectrum between agnosticism and Christian universalism. And I'm going to dive into that because I think it's important for me to address with all of you. But yeah, so let's just work backwards and about this idea of radical acceptance and how each kind of philosophy and religion that I have really wrestled with, encountered, has kind of conveyed of some version of that. So most recently, I've dived really into Taoism. Taoism is an Eastern religion started in China, and it's really centered around the idea that there's this natural order, natural way of the universe called the Dao, or the way, and that every action that people should take should be done in accordance with the Dao, with the way, and that also all things will eventually return to the Dao, that the universe will self-correct itself over the long span of history, and that eventually all things will return to harmonious coexistence or whatever. And sillily enough, I started really looking into Taoism because of a game called Nine Souls. I'm actually supposed to be making a lore video for Nine Souls. I have the recordings for it and everything, but I've been procrastinating hugely on that. But Nine Souls was the first time that I've seen Taoism really displayed in an almost practical way, rather than the kind of pseudo hippie philosophy that we sometimes see it as in the West. And there's minor spoilers for the game Nine Souls, but there's in Nine Souls, the race called the Solarians, these kind of cat people, they are on the brink of extinction because of a virus called the Tianhuo virus, or a heavenly disaster virus, which was actually caused by man-made interference in their gene modifications. And a group of the very kind of scientific, futurist Solarians, they decide to travel out into space to a sun in a distant galaxy and find a way to save their people, including the main character Yi. But his sister Heng is part of a group of Solarians who very much ascribe to traditional Taoist thinking, and as part of that, they have this radical acceptance of all things must end eventually. And what we can do is enjoy the time we have, enjoy it with the people we have, and be able to spend time to do the little things in life, to share a meal with the family, to enjoy the fresh vegetables that were picked this summer and pickled over the winter, to really appreciate the time we have. It's a little, apocalyptic doom, kind of like nihilistic, I guess. But I don't know if I don't know if I agree it's nihilistic. I think radical acceptance, it doesn't mean that there's no action, right? Even though that is a core tenet of Taoism. There's this idea in Taoism called, what is it called? Wu Wei, I think. Wu Wei, yeah. Which is like actionless action or non-action, or the idea that you should not take action, you should let nature or the Dao take its place. But that's sometimes ascribed to be like this very kind of hippie, pacifist type idea, when in reality, Taoists throughout Chinese history have been very active. If you looked at any of the like major rebellions or civil wars led by Taoists, you would know that they very much take action. But it's the idea that we take the action that we can. We enjoy the time that we can. We enjoy the people around us, but we don't get caught up in matters of what is to come and kind of the inevitability of everything. And I think actually that thought bleeds a lot into my other philosophy that I follow, Stoicism, a lot more cleanly. Stoicism is this kind of ancient philosophy that really gained prominence in ancient Greece and Roman times, as exemplified by certain philosophers such as the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. But again, there's this sense of radical acceptance. Stoicism has this same sense of like, what has happened, what will happen. The things that are outside of your control, you should not worry about those things. What you should focus and worry about is the things that are within your control. And primarily, the thing that is within your control is your outlook on life. So I think one of the common examples, if I remember correctly, was like, oh, you're forced to sleep on a cold, hard ground. Well, you can't change at that moment the environment you're in. You can't change how cold or hard the ground is or the place that you're sleeping. The only thing you can change in that moment is your attitude, your thought process, your how you feel about your situation. So radical acceptance is a way for us to work on ourselves and work on the things that we can change. And I think those two ideas, both the Taoist and the Stoicist radical acceptance idea, have been very attractive for me because of the times I've grown up in. My first election was 2016 when Trump first won. And we have this, general crisis looming above us, whether it's the genocide happening in Palestine, whether it's the war happening in Ukraine, the military dictatorship in Myanmar, the genocide of Uyghurs in China, etc. There's this general sense of there are these massive conflicts and destruction of human lives on this planet that either gets ignored or people, briefly put up some opposition, but the world has more or less just accepted those things as things that will continue to happen. And the two choices really are to fall into this spiral of kind of depression and nihilism, or to radically accept that this is the world, that, do what you can for all of those things. Fight for Palestinians' rights, fight for Ukraine's sovereign right, fight for the poor and the disenfranchised and all of this, but also just radical acceptance of the state of the world so that you yourself are not spiraling into this kind of pit. But yes, I think those two philosophies have been really attractive to me just because of the state of the world for so many of those things, whether it's global conflicts, whether it is kind of massive income inequality, whether it's the fact that people just seem nastier and more mean and more afraid than they ever had before. And that has caused them, these people who might have normally been really kind-hearted, good people, to act in a way that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. And I guess all this is to tie back to the main thing that I grew up with, Christianity, which is a religion that I have wrestled with and struggled with, and something I continue to wrestle and struggle with, and I don't know where I am there. Sometimes I accept I'm an agnostic. I don't really go to church anymore, frankly. There's not a lot of churches for Christian Universalists, which is maybe the one denomination I do feel some affinity for. The idea that Christian Universalism is the idea that because God is all powerful, all knowing, but also all loving and all good, that all people, all things will eventually be made right, and that all people in this life or the next will be made right with God and made whole with God. That is maybe the one Christian denomination that I do still feel any type of affinity and hope and belief in. But even then, it's a bit amorphous. It's not very concrete. But there are a couple of things from growing up in the church and growing up in specifically my church that has given me some sense of comfort. And again, it's that kind of like sense of radical acceptance. It's these ideas of Christianity that, I don't really see a lot ascribed to these days, at least not by churches in mainstream media and in the news, or the ones that are speaking out, especially speaking out in evangelical or Baptist communities for the GOP, for Republicans and Trump. But it's this idea that all people are flawed, that all people are sinned, but therefore no one is deserving of God's grace, but he gives it to us anyways, right? And equally for humanity, no one is deserving of our grace or forgiveness or whatever, but that's not, you don't give grace and forgiveness because people deserve it. They wouldn't need it in the first place if they deserved it, right? You give grace and forgiveness and compassion because you are generous with with the grace and forgiveness that you are able to give. And yeah, this is once again that level of radical acceptance for people, for the flawed state of this world, for the flawed people of this world, including myself. So it's radical acceptance of both myself and all my flaws and all my friends and family and all the Americans and people of the world for all their flaws and sins and all the, horrible things we do upon this earth, because there's the hope in Christianity that, God will eventually redeem all and make everything right. But I think even outside of that, there's the hope that we can enact some small change, even within just our small circle of people or community or whatever, to bring about some positive change within our lives, within our friends, within our families. Like I said, I've struggled a lot with Christianity, but that is one of the things that I do keep going back to. And it's one of the things I wish that was imparted more forcefully or imparted more meaningfully on other Christians. But yeah. All of this rambling for however long I've been rambling is to say that I'm thoroughly disappointed in what has happened. I'm very, very scared and worried for the future of our country and our world and the people. But there is that sense of radical acceptance. And radical acceptance doesn't mean not taking action, doesn't mean sitting still and doing nothing and falling into nihilism. It means accepting what things are today, that I can't change it, but that I will be ready to take action and to fight the good fight and do the right thing when the time for it comes again. And yeah, so to all my friends and family, to everyone watching, if you are also someone who feels very scared and disappointed and kind of in despair because of this election, I feel you. And you take time to grieve, take time to process things. No one's saying that Stoicism or Taoism or radical acceptance means that you just have to be fine. That's not what I'm saying. No, you should take the time to grieve and to process things. But also, I hope you take the time to genuinely take care of yourself. I hope that you don't fall into a circle of despair. To my friends, if you want to talk to someone, I'm here. If you want to talk to me for some reason, I'm here, right? And for people who voted for Trump, I think there's a small core of people, a small core of supporters for Trump who do have a very bitter and very real belief in the things that they want to see come about with Trump, who do truly want to take away people's rights and inflict pain on others. But I also think the vast majority of people who voted for Trump are scared, more scared than they would like to admit. Or a lot of them, I think, feel justified or not, feel abandoned, feel like they have nothing to lose, feel like that they're angry and that they want to break the system because the system has never been on their side. And there's grace there that I want to give. There's forgiveness there that I want to give, and I think I will eventually come to that point. But to be truth, right now is still a little too recent and raw. But I don't think the move is to turn away those folks. I don't think the move is to demean or put down or belittle those people, because I think for a lot of them, their fears and anger and bitterness have a very real origin, a very real core to it, and may have been manipulated up to 11 by everything wrong with our world. But I don't think those things are something we can rightfully dismiss. But yeah. Anyways, I guess for everyone else who grew up with me, now you know where I stand. Now you know how I think. If there's any aunts or uncles or bastards there trying to getting ready to do an intervention for me, I appreciate it, maybe. But I'm happy to talk to anyone, truly anyone from any background, belief, and however they're feeling, whether it's despondent and sad or nervous or scared or even optimistic because of what happened to you. I'm truly happy to talk to anyone, because that's the only thing we can do. The only thing we can do is make an effect on ourselves and how we view the world and how we respond to the world and how we interact with our friends and families and communities. And the only way to make a positive difference is to expand those circles, those communities, and those conversations, rather than closing ourselves off from them. But yeah, thanks for listening.